welcome to Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Jillian Johnson. This past Monday, the 22nd of September, marked the first day of fall. While temperatures cooled off a little over the past week, we're still waiting for that true taste of a cooler fall air to arrive. We're also waiting for leaves to start changing color in central Texas. Leaves are already changing colors in some northern states like Washington and Montana. But here in Texas, we typically start to see those fall colors by the mid to end of October, with peak foliage arriving closer to Thanksgiving. Now, the first day of fall is known as the autumn equinox. For more on what this is and a look at how much daylight we'll be losing over the coming months, we bring in First Alert Meteorologist Brendan Jackson, who has more on that.
There are a few different times when fall is considered to start, but the day most commonly considered the official start of fall is astronomical fall, which is the day marked on your calendar. This day is marked by an astronomical event known as the autumn equinox. But what exactly is the autumn equinox? Let's dive in. Our Earth is angled relative to the Sun, and it holds the same angle in space all throughout its orbit. This angle, known as the axial tilt, is around 23.5 degrees, and is what causes our seasons to occur, as more direct sunlight reaches different parts of the Earth depending on which hemisphere is pointed towards the Sun, which depends on where we are in our orbit. The equinox is the moment that the Earth's equator is perfectly aligned with the Sun, and on this day, the entire planet sees roughly the same amount of daylight. This moment will occur on September 22nd. Equinoxes occur twice a year, once here in September and another time in March, as the Sun crosses the equator into the southern and northern hemispheres respectively. Equinoxes always mark the start of fall and spring, much like their counterparts, the solstices, which are the moments the Sun reaches its furthest northern and southern latitude, and are used to mark the start of summer and winter. The day of the equinox varies slightly year to year, which is why the start of fall isn't always on the same day. But it will always fall right around the 21st or the 22nd of September. As we get closer and closer to the fall and winter months, let's dive into just how much sunlight we stand to lose. In the month of September, we will lose a lot of daylight across the lower 48. In central Texas, we will lose a little over 50 minutes of daylight this month, the most over the course of any month, and only slightly more than we will lose in October. The back half of September is when we have the greatest loss of daylight per day. Here in central Texas, we lose just shy of 2 minutes of daylight every day this time of year. However, the further north you go, the more drastic that drop in daylight per day is. For example, in Fairbanks, Alaska, the land of the midnight sun, their peak days of lost daylight happen in early August, where they lost nearly 7 minutes of daylight per day. And even now, in September, are still losing more than 6.5 minutes every day. The entire northern hemisphere will continue to lose daylight every day until December 21st, the winter solstice. On that day in central Texas, we will have 10 hours, 5 minutes, and 33 seconds of daylight, 4 hours, 6 minutes, and 51 seconds less than our longest day, and around 2 hours less than we have around now. So, it will be a short day, but at least we'll see the sun in December, unlike our friends up in Fairbanks. For KWTX, I'm First Alert Meteorologist Brendan Jackson.
As the month of September gets ready to come to a close, you may be patiently waiting for a true taste of fall, and sometimes we start to get a sneak peek of it in October. Here's a look at what a normal October should look like here in Central Texas. A normal October in Central Texas starts to feel a bit more like fall, but the month still starts out pretty warm with an average high of 86, but by Halloween, the average high drops down to 75. Mornings in October can also start to feel a little more chilly, allowing us to bring out those jackets and hoodies. The month starts out with an average low of 62 and falls to 51 by the end of the month. But don't be fooled by those temperatures, because if you lived in Central Texas long enough, you know that it can still get hot in October. The hottest temperature ever recorded in October was 104 degrees, which actually occurred last year on the 13th. And the latest 100-degree day in a year was also recorded in October of last year. Temperatures reached 100 on the 15th. We've also had some winter-like weather in the month of October. The coldest temperature ever recorded was 25 degrees, which happened back in 1993 on the 31st. And also in that same year, a trace of snow fell, which happened on the 29th. The wettest October day was the 23rd back in 2015 when 7.75 inches of rain fell at the Waco Regional Airport. And that same year was also the wettest October month when over 15 inches fell. There's only been one year where no rain fell in October, and that happened back in 1952. October is the second wettest month of the year for Central Texas. An average of 4.41 inches should fall. Now, the wettest month of the year is actually May, when 4.44 inches fall on average. You may have heard of El Niño and La Niña before, but what exactly are they and how do they impact our weather? First Alert meteorologist C.D. Finley has answers to those questions.
The El Niño Southern Oscillation, otherwise known as ENSO, is a climatological pattern in the Pacific Ocean that influences our weather and climate over a long period of time. ENSO is broken up into three phases, two of which you are probably familiar with, El Niño and La Niña, and the neutral phase, of course, which is otherwise known as the transition phase. So, let's talk about El Niño. Normally, the trade winds push warmer waters near the Asian continent. The El Niño phase occurs when these trade winds weaken, leading to warmer water temperatures staying near the Americas. This also leads to an extended Pacific jet stream, meaning the southern U.S., including the Gulf Coast, has wetter than usual conditions, while the northern U.S. is drier and warmer than usual. The most recent El Niño phase occurred from mid-2023 to spring 2024, with 2018 and 2019 being a weak El Niño phase, and 2015 to 2016 being the strongest El Niño phase in recent memory. La Niña, on the other hand, is essentially the opposite of El Niño. The same trade winds push warmer water toward Asia, but this time, instead of weakening, the trade winds actually strengthen, leading to more upwelling of cooler water off the west coast of the Americas. During a La Niña phase, the jet stream is pushed northward, which usually leads to warm and dry conditions in the southern U.S. and wetter than normal conditions across the Pacific Northwest and Canada. The last La Niña phase occurred from 2022 to early 2023, followed by a moderate phase from 2020 to 2022 and a weaker phase from mid-2016 to mid-2018. The strongest La Niña phase in recent memory was, of course, 2010 to 2011, and many Central Texans will remember how hot and dry the summer of 2011 was. In mid to late 2025, we are in what is called the ENSO neutral phase, meaning neither El Niño or La Niña. The ENSO neutral phase is essentially a transition phase where the surface temperatures of the Pacific Ocean are at or near average. However, the Climate Prediction Center is anticipating a transition into the La Niña phase very soon. They calculate a 71% chance of La Niña conditions from October through December of 2025, and La Niña is still favored from December 2025 to February 2026, but the odds drop to 54%. Even still, you can see these expected La Niña conditions reflected by the seasonal outlook for this fall, with dry conditions expected across the southern half of the U.S., outside of Florida and parts of the East Coast, of course, given that it is hurricane season, and wetter conditions across the Pacific Northwest. Meanwhile, the southern U.S. is expected to be warmer than average this fall as well. From KWTX, I'm First Alert meteorologist C.D. Finley.
New images and discoveries have been coming in from outer space these past few months, and coming up next on Weather Extra, we'll tell you more about them. Stick with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Humans have long wondered whether there is or was life on Mars. Mark Strassman reports a rock star named Perseverance may have finally dug up the answer.
This is a selfie of Perseverance, the rover that found this rock, potentially the most meaningful rock on Mars NASA has ever studied. Sean Duffy is NASA's acting administrator.
So this very well could be the clearest sign of life that we've ever found on Mars, which is incredibly exciting.
These spots on the rock make NASA giddy, a potential biosignature of Martian microbes in an ancient riverbed more than 3 billion years old.
What made it stand out?
It just didn't look like the rocks around it.
Dr. Nikki Fox is NASA's head of science.
This is by far the most interesting observation that we have made as we continue to look for life elsewhere in the solar system.
It's a rock for the ages and for the big question, are we alone? Mark Strassman, CBS News, Atlanta.
And here's another breathtaking and historic view of the red planet. A Mars orbiter captured this image of a volcano poking through the clouds at dawn. It's the first image of a volcano on the horizon of Mars. At 12 miles high, the RCA Mons volcano is about twice as tall as the highest volcano here on Earth. It's the southernmost and cloudiest in a line of 3 volcanoes, and it's one of the largest volcanoes on Mars. And according to planetary scientists, there may be a layer of diamonds up to 11 miles thick under the surface of Mercury, the solar system's smallest planet and nearest to the sun. Mercury was born roughly 4.5 billion years ago under incredibly high pressure and temperatures. Scientists recreated those conditions using a high-tech machine called an anvil press, used for research but also to make synthetic diamonds. The team inserted elements including graphite to mimic the theorized composition of Mercury's early interior. At temperatures of more than 3,600 degrees and pressures nearly 70,000 times greater than Earth's surface, the graphite turned into diamond crystals. And according to a new study, space flight makes certain human stem cells age faster. This discovery furthers scientists' understanding of the potential effects of space exploration on the human body. Stem cells are found throughout the body, and they can make more of themselves or turn into other specialized cells, including blood, brain, or bone cells, for maintenance and repair. Authors of the study from the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine found that stem cells decline in function while in space, which reduces their ability to regenerate. NASA funded part of the study, which was performed during 4 International Space Station resupply missions. Experts say these findings mean that long missions could weaken the blood and immune systems, potentially raising health risks for astronauts. Preliminary results of a separate study found stem cells can recover from the accelerated aging once an astronaut returns to Earth, although the recovery takes about a year. Up next on Weather Extra is this week's Degrees of Science, where we learn more about Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. More on this when we return. Welcome back to Weather Extra. The month of September is a Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, a time to raise awareness about a disease that impacts around 1 in every 300 kids. In this week's Degrees of Science, Brady Taylor spoke with a doctor from St. Jude about what types of cancer impact children, along with the advancements that have been made to increase the survival rate.
Dr. Carroll, I guess right off the bat, how prevalent is cancer in children?
Almost 10,000 children every year are diagnosed with childhood cancer. That means that somewhere in 1 in 250, 1 in 300 children may experience cancer before they reach adulthood. It means that if you're in a normal-sized elementary school, you may indeed have a schoolmate who will have cancer at some point along the way during their education.
That's a lot higher number than I thought. Is there certain types of cancer that are more prevalent in children?
Yeah, so the types of cancer that occur in children are quite different than the types of cancer that occur in adults. Leukemias, which are a form of blood and bone marrow cancer, and brain tumors are the 2 most common forms of cancer that occur in children.
So there's been a lot of advancements when it comes to research and medicine. Has the survival rate improved when it comes to kids that end up with these style of cancers?
Thankfully, yes. So over the last 50 or 60 years, we've turned leukemia from a disease that would kill 4 in 5 or more children to one where more than 90% of children with leukemia are expected to become long-term survivors and grow up to have long, healthy lives.
Oh, that is amazing for sure, those kind of improvements. What kind of research are you and other people doing behind the scenes to continue to advance the treatment of these kinds of cancers?
Yeah, so our treatment really spans the gambit. That includes things like taking leukemia to the lab and understanding the genes or the DNA breaks that happen in leukemia and how that causes leukemia, or how that makes that leukemia either respond to or resist the chemotherapy that we use to treat it. It includes developing new medicines, new chemicals to fight leukemia, or even new ways to turn the body's own immune system on to fight the leukemia so that we can use less chemotherapy. And it includes research to understand the long-term impacts of those treatments so that we can learn from those and try to make sure that the survivors of leukemia and other forms of childhood cancer have fewer of those long-term effects, have even longer, healthier lives after they've survived their cancer.
So it's great that the survival rate's getting better, but this is a long battle that these kids have to go through. How important is it for families to learn about this and just getting that extra support as they go through it as well?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. Our first job is really to care for the patient and their family, really help them not only treat the cancer, but then ultimately survive it. And then by understanding what has happened along the way, what those treatments are, we really empower families, we empower patients to be healthier survivors by understanding what the things are that they might be at risk for, and then how to talk and work with their doctor to look for those problems, and if they're identified early, to intervene so that they are not so harmful.
So again, September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Why is it so important to kind of set aside a month to raise awareness about this?
Yeah, well, as horrible as cancer is, it is still relatively rare in children, and so we think it's really important for everyone to know that it can happen and that it's treatable and curable. And we think that it's important to really spend the time to highlight cancer in children during the month of September, because it means that your parents are empowered to ask their doctors questions if they're worried about their children. And at the same time, it normalizes the fact that cancer can happen. So if the child's classmate or a friend develops cancer, they know that that may be treatable, may be curable, and also that it lets the family then support the child in their community who may be going through this.
What drove you to want to focus more on leukemia and working with children that go through stuff like this?
Yeah, so I get the privilege of caring for families and children with leukemia, and I really enjoy that because for 2 years, 3 years of their lives, the leukemia is sort of their biggest problem. And I get to, walk with a child and their family through that entire journey, from those worst moments at the beginning where we talk about the fact their child does have cancer, through the next moments that follow immediately after, which is, we've been doing this for 60 years and we have treatments that we expect will cure your child. And the next several years can have all kinds of highs and lows, but you walk that journey with a family. And most of the time we're lucky that we get to the end of that. We celebrate and throw confetti at the kid and their family and congratulate them on finishing their treatment. And we get to watch them then when they come back in the months and years afterwards, where they're off treatment and they're just growing and thriving. And there's few things in the world that bring that level of joy.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I tell you, the strongest, bravest people I've ever met are kids that are battling through cancer. They seem to handle it better than adults do, better than parents do. So if someone that wants to help out, I know that St. Jude, you do a lot of research. Is there ways that people can help out and benefit maybe more research for kids like this?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, certainly, I think the key is just get involved. And that means get involved with the hospitals in your community, figure out how to help them. That can be as simple as donating blood. If you have the desire and willingness, finding organizations like St. Jude or others that contribute to research and treatment for children, and supporting them, and just be supportive of the people in your communities who are going through health problems, be it cancer or anything else.
To learn more about Childhood Cancer Awareness Month before September is over, scan the QR code on your screen to watch Brady's full interview on YouTube, or head over to our website at kwtx.com/degrees of science. Straight ahead on Weather Extra, Dan Smith will go over some common and uncommon weather folklore in your Moment of Science. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. In this week's Moment of Science, Dan Smith is putting some weather folklore to the test. Can these sayings actually predict the weather? Take a look.
It's a rapid-fire fact or fiction in the weather department. This week we're taking on some atmospheric old wives' tales, myths, and folklore. Let's start off with one a lot of you know. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. Red sky at night, sailors delight. This one actually goes back to biblical times and relies on most weather systems moving west to east in the mid-latitudes. That's 30 to 60 degrees north and south of the equator. Water vapor, dust, and other particles tend to scatter sunlight passing through, sometimes leading to those vibrant oranges and reds when the sun is low on the horizon. A redder sunrise might indicate high pressure trapping some dust over you, with low pressure or a storm moving toward you from the west not long after, reflecting and refracting in those raindrops. At sunset, the same color might tell you that storms in the east are moving away, with high pressure taking hold once again. The verdict here, mainly true with those specific conditions. When sound travels far and wide, a stormy day will be tide. This one's easy enough. Sound waves travel faster and farther through more humid air compared to dry, and warmer air only accentuates that difference. For most practical outdoor temperatures, it's only a few meters per second difference. However, humidity and warmth are not guaranteed to get storms fired up, so we'll call this one a toss-up. Here's one I didn't hear about till recently. The bubbles in your coffee cup moving toward the center, indicating high pressure, with a low pressure day seeing the bubbles stick to the sides. This one may pass the taste test depending on how you like that coffee, but not the truth test. If anything, the myth should go the other way, with low pressure getting bubbles in the middle. Think of pressure contours like height contours in hill country or a mountain range. You roll a ball down a hill and it wants to settle in the lowest point, or in the atmosphere's case, lowest pressure. Winds converge in a surface low and diverge in a high, but that has nothing to do with your morning cup of joe. Temperature, mug shape, stirring, there are far too many factors to watch before you could ever get a reliable forecast out of that. Finally, we've covered animals as potential prognosticators before, but here's one with a fall color flare. Can the stripes on a woolly bear caterpillar predict how harsh or mild a winter will be? This one may be more of a Midwest Northeast thing, with some towns like Vermilion, Ohio holding annual woolly bear festivals in the fall for these little guys. The lore says a blacker caterpillar means a harsher winter is in the works, while more orangish brown is a sign of milder temps. They're pretty cute and fuzzy, but not a bellwether for winter weather. A better growing season does mean a bigger caterpillar and narrower orange band, but that just tells you about its past and not the future. So there you have it, 4 sayings, some true, some not, with plenty more local, regional, and international ones still to discover. For this week's Moment of Science, I'm Dan Smith.
Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. We're back here next weekend for another half hour of your top weather and science stories from the upcoming week. We'll see you next time.